Hi there, everyone. Welcome to Dome at Home, Manitoba Museum's award-winning astronomy planetarium online show. I'm your host, Scott Young, and I'm the planetarium astronomer at the Manitoba Museum, and we have, it's an interesting show today. This has been I don't know if it has been like that for you, but it's been a busy month here in Dome at Home Central. Actually, just today, my oldest child graduated from high school, and so all this week there was the grad dinner, and then today convocation, just a couple of hours ago, as a matter of fact. So I now have a graduate living under my house, under my roof, and let's see what else happened since our last show. Oh, I broke my ankle coaching my other kids' volleyball team, and so that slowed me down a little bit. We have 2 brand new planetarium shows opening, and I'm setting up a series of meetings, and this week has just been, I don't know what I was thinking when I was planning all of this out earlier in the year, but somehow I managed to put all of my deadlines all together basically during grad week. Do not recommend. So anyway, the show is got some cool stuff in it, and we're going to be checking out a little bit of daytime observing. We've got a couple of images from folks that sent things in. We're going to be talking about the sky that you can see. Right now, it doesn't really get dark until really, really late. And with the combination of the perpetual twilight that we get at this time of year, plus the smoke from the forest fires, it has not been great observing, but still, any time under the stars is pretty amazing. So we'll be looking at that. And of course, there were a few interesting space news stories over the last month that we will get into as well. Make sure you say hi in the chat and let us know where you're watching from and all that kind of stuff. It's always great to know who's out there and what's going on. I know it's that time of the year where things are pretty busy, but it's lovely that you could join us. All right, let us, we're going to start off with a couple of images. One of our staff at the Manitoba Museum, curator Randy Moy, is our curator of zoology. Basically, he's the guy with all the animals. And if you've been through our museum galleries, there's piles and piles of animals there. He was out on a research trip out to the Grasslands Park out in Saskatchewan and managed to get, well, a whole bunch of wonderful pictures, but most of them aren't appropriate for this show just because they're to do with various animals and stuff like that. But he did take a couple of astronomical shots, so we're going to, as soon as I can get this ready here, we're going to share a couple of those. So here we go. This was not a sunrise. This was middle of the day. There was so much smoke in the air out there in Saskatchewan that you had a red sun like this pretty much all day, and not great. So you were able to image the sun fairly safely. In fact, there were a few sunspots that people were able to see over the last month that were large enough to be seen with the unaided eye, and with the filter of the smoke, it was something a lot of people were seeing. He caught similarly. There's the full moon. That was the I guess the pink moon, or was it the strawberry moon? I always mix up the names of the full moons. But again, just that's not cloud. That's there's a little bit of cloud. Sorry, just this little piece along there I think is cloud, but all this is from the smoke. And again, that's not a harvest moon or something like that, or very near the horizon. That's up reasonably high. So pretty rough out there in Saskatchewan, and of course here in Manitoba as well. We've had those forest fires that have been ravaging the dry areas, and folks up in Flin Flon just got to go back yesterday after almost a month of evacuation. So things are starting to get better, but it's still really dry. Even though the fire ban emergency is over, still be very careful if you're out there doing anything like that. Hey, Hollis, nice to see you from Connecticut. Always a pleasure. We had a chance to do a little bit of planning for some vacation, and we might be down in that region of neck of the woods at some point. We'll have to see. Maybe not soon, but I've got friends out in Connecticut, and I've got friends down in Massachusetts and New York and stuff like that. So we'll get out there one day. Let's see. I think Randy sent another pic. Let me just see here. Oh no, this is one of Gia's pictures. Gia sent this to me last month, and it got there just after I had sort of made the content for the show, so I didn't get a chance to put it in. But this is a great panorama of the sky of the Milky Way. And let's see if we're just making sure that it's all getting through here. Yeah, there we go. So this is a number of images stitched together to get that nice wide panorama. And that's the way to see the Milky Way, because it wraps all the way around the sky. And so you've got the bright Milky Way here. The central dark dust lane shows up really nicely there. And yeah, it's a beautiful shot, Gia. It's tough to put those panoramas together, I know, because, you know, matching the different frames and getting the colors to balance and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of work in the digital darkroom for sure. And you can see in this photo as well, there's some, looks like some smoke and stuff like that along the bottom. There's also a little bit of aurora in here, a little bit of magenta and a little bit of green there, looks like. And let's see, let's just make sure we're looking in the right spot here. Oh yeah, so this is Vega up at the top here. This is Altair, and then over here we've got Deneb, and that's your summer triangle. So that's the sort of the central part of the Milky Way that we can see. The really good part of the Milky Way, of course, gets down into the murk down near the horizon in the south. Talk more about the Milky Way in a minute, though, because there's a couple of other things to do with that. This is a great shot. Thanks a lot, Gia, for sending it in. I always love seeing your images, and just some really great work. Okay, let us. Oh, I took a picture. This is the Pelican Nebula. This was before I broke my ankle, and before I managed to mess up my observatory system, so I have to drive out to the remote site and untangle a bunch of cables. But this is a cloud up in the constellation of Cygnus, pretty close to Deneb, actually. And it is called the Pelican Nebula because it kind of looks like there's the eye, and here's the pelican's long beak, and that's sort of the peak on the back of its head, and this would be like the body. It's sort of just sitting there, I guess. It looks more like a pterodactyl than a pelican to me because it's got this sort of backwards-facing head thing here, almost like a spike, but whatever. This was actually some images that I took quite a bit earlier in the year, but I only had the chance to put them together and do all the color correction and stuff like that recently. I'll be able to do more of that now that I have a broken ankle. I'm still fairly mobile, but it's definitely going to keep me out of the lifting telescopes category for a while. All right, let us move to... well, you know what? We're gonna tackle one of our topics here. We were going to talk about daytime observing. As you know, summer solstice just passed last week, and that is the date that we have the longest days and the shortest nights, the longest amount of daylight hours and the shortest amount of nighttime hours. And technically, it doesn't even get to full darkness. For it to be fully dark, the sun has to be 18 degrees below the horizon. And that doesn't actually happen at this time of the year because when the sun sets, it sets way over in the northwest and it just dips down below the northern horizon before it starts rising again. So we never get full darkness. We only get to what's called nautical twilight, which is still kind of dark. You see stars and things like that. It's just not as dark, that pitch black sky that we'll see at other times of the year. So, because of that, we were going to talk a little bit about daylight observing. And because of the manic schedule, we're going to talk about daylight observing again later in the year because I've got someone that I'd like to bring on the show to help out up with that because he's done a lot of daytime observing. But anyway, the main thing that you can see, of course, in the daytime is the sun. And the sun is one of those things that, of course, it's visible in the daytime. It is an astronomical object. It's a star. It is the star that is closest to us, and it's the only one that we can really see details on. And in fact, if you have a proper, safe way of observing the sun, there's a lot to be seen. But that's the key. The sun is so bright, if you were to look at it for a long time, you can damage your eyes permanently. If you looked at the sun with a telescope without a proper solar filter, you would instantly blind yourself, like instantly. So do not look at the sun with a telescope unless you have a proper solar filter that probably costs at least $100, if not more. If it came for free with your telescope, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would trust it. But with a proper solar filter, you can see, well, first of all, these little dark spots here, these are called sunspots. And then there's all sorts of detail on the surface here. There's like sort of little bright parts and little halos around the sunspots. And then throughout the whole thing, there's all these sort of little granulation detail. And it's basically, it's like if you're watching a pot of boiling water. You know, the whole pot isn't boiling. You get a bubble that sort of boils up from the bottom to the top, and it sort of comes to the top and it splooshes over, and then sort of disappears, but then another bubble comes up somewhere else and the same thing happens. That's what's going on the surface of the sun all the time. Now, it doesn't happen quite as quickly, so you can't sort of watch it in real time. It takes a little bit of time, but the sun can be a fascinating thing to see. But again, it requires some special equipment. And you can really get a lot of detail on the sun. If you get some of the more specialized gear, you can see not just the surface of the sun, the visible surface, which we call the photosphere with the sunspots and things. You can also see what are called prominences. These are basically flames exploding off the edge of the sun. You can think of it that way. And they can change, you know, hour to hour. Even over the course of 10 minutes, you'll actually see the things start to move like almost like a slow motion fountain of plasma. Really, really cool. I was using one of the telescopes that the Astronomical Society, the local astronomy club, has in their loaner program. So if you're a member, you can borrow it. And I took this picture with that. And so you can actually see stuff like this just with a telescope that is designed specifically for the sun. Not a lot of us have those, but if you join the astronomy club, you can use it in their library. So that's a fun thing to do. But yeah, it does require, you know, some specialized gear. On the left here, we've got a telescope where it's pointed at the sun, but instead of looking at it, it's actually projecting the light out onto a little sort of projection screen here, almost like a little movie screen. And then you can see what the sun is doing without actually getting the full impact of the light in your eyes. The other way to do it is to have a special filter that goes in the front of your telescope. So that kind of daytime observing requires a little bit of sophisticated kinds of observing. So we're going to talk a little bit about other kinds of daytime observing because we want to just see what we can do kind of on a budget here. So let me switch over to everybody's favorite planetarium program, Stellarium. And Stellarium, here we go. Stellarium is the program that we use to recreate the night sky. So here I've got the sky at the darkest tonight. So it looks like it's going to be clear tonight here in Manitoba. The sky is kind of dark enough to see the Milky Way if you're outside the city. We're in new moon period or almost new moon period right now, so the sky gets fairly dark. And off in the south, we have the summer triangle with the Milky Way here. The darkest time is about 1:39 a.m. It's not midnight for a variety of reasons, but you know, because first of all, it's daylight savings time, so what's actually midnight according to nature is 1 a.m. on our clocks. But we're also not right in the center of the time zone. We have the standard time zone, so 1:39 a.m. is actually the darkest time of night here in southern central Manitoba. And that'll be the time that you can sort of get your best view of what's up in the sky. So it's a pretty late call. And if you're up at 1:30, well, you might as well just stay up all night because all sorts of interesting things start coming up over in the east as we get towards dawn. Once you get to around 3:30 in the morning, a bunch of planets have risen. We've got over here in the southeast, we've got Saturn, not super bright, but brighter than anything else in that part of the sky. There was recently a conjunction with it and Neptune which is invisible without a telescope. And again, the internet was going crazy with those smiley face pictures with the big stars and the moon and all that stuff. That's not what it looks like. Neptune you won't see, but it's close to where Saturn is. Rising up over here is Venus, and that's really something that you can see in the daytime. In fact, you can see it in broad daylight if you know where to look and if you can get your eyes to focus on infinity, because usually when you're looking at the sky, your eyes will focus closer, and so the planet Venus will sort of be out of focus, and that makes it dimmer and you can't see it. But what I like to do is, if I'm up this early, so here we are at 4:30, the stars are starting to fade away, but Venus is still there, and you can follow it into the daytime. If you're watching it and your eyes focus on it, you can keep your eyes just at the right focus so that you can follow it all the way into daytime. And so you'll be able to see it even when the sun rises up. It'll still be visible to you. But here's the thing. As soon as you look away and then you try to look back, even if you look in exactly the right spot, your eyes have lost focus. I always lose it very, very quickly if I look away. So you have to sort of watch very carefully. Now, if you don't just want to do unaided eye daytime observing, binoculars are a great help here. And the thing you have to be careful about is that if the sun is up, you have to make sure you don't accidentally point your binoculars at the sun. So I like to stand in a place where the sun is physically behind a building so that I can't possibly accidentally look at it. But spotting Venus at the appropriate time during the daytime with binoculars is actually quite easy. You focus your binoculars at night so that you know that they're focused on the stars. And that way, when you put them up to your eyes, they'll automatically be focused at the right distance, and you'll be able to see whatever stars are in there. And so with a little app like this and your phone, you can sort of point your binoculars in the right direction and get it close to where you should be looking. And you can spot Venus in the daytime pretty easily with a pair of binoculars. Definitely something worth trying. And I've heard tell that you can do the same with Jupiter and even some of the brighter stars, although I've never successfully done that myself. I'm not sure. I have seen Venus in the daytime, though, and that is definitely something worth doing. With a telescope, the problem is being able to aim it properly, but if you've got one of those computerized telescopes that can point properly even when it's daytime, you might also be able to use those. Just again, make sure that you don't accidentally have them point towards the sun. Now, we're going to talk more about daylight observing in a future episode, because there's a bunch of other things that I sort of uncovered that I'd like to get into, but we won't have time this evening. But for this time of the year, since we don't get a lot of darkness, you've got the opportunity of doing solar observing. You can follow the moon, of course, in the daytime. A lot of people are always surprised to hear that the moon is in the daytime sky literally half the time. So you can go up there and spot the moon. And again, binoculars are a great help. And if you're up early in the morning, you can follow Venus up through the twilight. So that's a fun kind of thing to do. Now, while we're here in Stellarium, I think I'm actually just gonna rewind our sky just a little bit here. We'll go back to our 1:39 kind of time frame. There we go. The thing about this time of year is that we're pointed kind of towards the center of the Milky Way galaxy. This hazy band of light that goes across the sky is called the Milky Way because the Greeks said it looked like milk spilt on the sky. Okay, the center of it is right down here. This is really our galaxy as seen from the inside, and because the Milky Way season is sort of in the summer, the planetarium has a couple of new shows opening this Saturday, and one of them is called the Milky Way Live, and it's basically a guided tour of our galaxy. We take a look at some of the constellations that you would see, the stars that are in the Milky Way, and then we also start zooming in to some of the really beautiful objects that are within the Milky Way, things like the Hercules cluster and the Ring Nebula, and things like that. And then we also fly around the galaxy to see where the stars are, to see the black hole at the center of the galaxy. It's a really great show. It's delivered live by our trained staff, and they can basically answer questions for you and give you a guided tour of the galaxy, so that when you're outside of the city this summer, maybe you're camping or at a cabin or something like that, or you just take a little drive and get away from city lights, get away from the moonlight, you can tour the galaxy yourself and know a few of the names of the things that are up there. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my ankle here to get it in the proper spot. There we go. Okay. Let's see. Oh, we got some folks checking in there. Nice to see you all in the chat there. Hi, Val. Hey, Chris. Nice to see you. Chris, of course, from Astronomy by the Bay and the Sunday Night Astronomy Show, one of the best astronomy shows out there. They run every Sunday night at, I think it's 6:30 Central Time here. And just a wonderful show. And Chris goes live with his telescope all the time. And so definitely you want to join his Facebook page to see when he goes live, because, you just get random telescope views. Really nice stuff. All right. Let's move on to another part of the show that we like to call
Cool Space Stuff.
Yes, cool space stuff. Here's the really cool planetarium show that I was talking about. Milky Way Live is cool, and it's a nice planetarium show and so on. But this one is a big deal. This is a show that I've been wanting to see for a very long time, and it's finally available here. Wilfred Buck is an Inuit or Cree sky teller and custodian of various sky teachings and wisdom about the sky. And I've admired him for decades. He's been a science teacher and communicator. He's been traveling with a mobile planetarium, and he's been collecting these stories of the sky. He's put his own show together with Door Number 3 Productions that we did a special premiere of on Thursday, and it opens on Saturday. It's called Wilfred Buck's Star Stories. He narrates it. It's like sitting in a room with a wise teacher who can tell you the stories of the stars, and the constellations and the stories that the Inuit people use are very different from the classical Greek and Roman ones. It's not like Clash of the Titans, heroic adventure stories, or what kind of mischief did Zeus get up to today? It's a completely different way of looking at the sky. First of all, it's about connections to the sky, and all the stories have morals and sort of lessons that are relevant today as well. Really, really good show. I can't say enough about it. I think I've seen it now 9 times, and it's amazing. So that opens up on Saturday, and we're really thrilled to be able to have that at our planetarium. So if you get a chance, come check it out. If you're a member of the museum, you get free admission, of course. We also have free admission for people of Indigenous descent. So there's, and actually right now the prices are low because it's an all-for-one ticket. So anyway, check it out on the website, manitobamuseum.ca. Great show. Can't say enough about it. Okay, let's get to some other cool space stuff. So you might have heard that Starship was getting ready for a test and just blew up. And this is, it's kind of hard to come up with anything to say that isn't smarmy or something like that, because it's pretty rough. If you haven't seen the video, we'll switch over to the video here. They're fueling it up for a test where they're going to just test the engines on the ground. And the explosion is big enough that it throws gigantic pieces of rubble all the way across the Rio Grande and several miles into Mexico. There's a huge group of dead trees way across the river and stuff like that. It's a massive explosion, because and this wasn't fully fueled up. they only have enough of the methane fuel in it for the test. So that's not a fully fueled Starship explosion. That's just a test one. Anyway, they had some problems with components or things like that. But I mean, this one didn't even get off the ground before it exploded. So there's definitely some problems with the Starship system. And while depending on who you watch for news, you can hear that, oh no, they meant to do that, and this is the way they work. And I was willing to cut some slack earlier, but now it seems like this is like, it shouldn't be getting worse as you do these tests. You should be learning things and making things better. And the story has been, well, it's you test fast and you blow things up, but it's still cheaper than the way NASA did it. Well, NASA launched their one big rocket and it worked almost 100% the first time, not, exploding on the pad waiting for a test. So it is definitely one of those things that is very disappointing. This is supposedly the thing that will carry astronauts to the surface of the moon in just a little bit over a year, theoretically. I don't see that happening. On the plus side, we've been following the Artemis mission to the moon, Jeremy Hansen on Artemis 2. That seems to be proceeding as per before. It doesn't look like they have made any changes to the crew or anything like that. We were a bit worried with the Gateway space station being canceled and the Canadarm3 part of that maybe Jeremy would have to give up his seat for a U.S. astronaut. That doesn't seem to be the case right now, so fingers crossed. But anyway, it's definitely a tough situation. Oh, I'm rid of our ads that pop in there. Sorry about that. It's just a tough situation, and it's hard to imagine how to put a positive spin on the way things are going there. But if you follow a couple of the SpaceX fanboy sites, they definitely have a positive spin on everything. Anyway, I don't think it's very good. This was the absolute best. Like, there were memes and stuff that came out of it, of course, and not a lot of people like Elon Musk right now, and so of course people were using it to jump on him. But this was the absolute best thing. The last several tests of Starship, they've been trying to open the payload bay door, which is like this long flap that has to move up and down, and that's where they're going to deploy Starlink satellites and all that kind of stuff. They haven't been able to get it to work every time that they've flown. Well, it opened. The explosion basically blew it all the way across the river into Mexico. So, whoever Asher B is, you are the wind beneath my wings. Let's see. Oh, Marcy's asking a question. Any comments about the Boutids meteor shower? Someone told me about it. I didn't get to look up. Okay. Welcome, Marcy. It's an interesting situation that we find ourselves in. If we go back to our sky here, on any night, there are meteor showers technically happening. As in, a meteor shower is a piece of, a trail of dust left behind by a comet, and the Earth goes through that trail. And when those pieces of dust hit the Earth, each one of them comes through the atmosphere and burns up. The friction with the atmosphere causes it to burn up in a flash of light. We see the flash of light as a meteor or a falling star, a shooting star. Those are all the names for the same thing. And on any given night, you can probably see a half dozen of those an hour if you were watching the sky, without blinking or anything like that. They happen fairly often. There are nights when there are more of them, though, because the Earth is going through an actual trail of dust rather than just the regular dust that's out there in the solar system. Some of those meteor showers, though, we can trace them back to a particular object, a particular comet that's left the trail, but they still don't make a lot of meteors. So the name shower is sometimes misleading, because the Boutids shower is usually produces an average of 0 meteors per hour. So less than 1 meteor per hour because of rounding. So it's not really a big shower. However, what's really interesting is that every once in a while, this particular meteor shower makes a little burst of meteors. It might last half an hour, might last 10 minutes. And at that point, you get the equivalent of, say, 100 meteors per hour. Maybe not for a full hour, though. So you might see 25 meteors in 15 minutes. It's totally unpredictable. We think what's happening is most of the dust has sort of gathered into dust bunnies, kind of like it does under my couch. And so most of the time the Earth goes through, there's not very much dust at all. But if we happen to hit one of those dust bunnies, you get a whole bunch of stuff, but it doesn't last very long. So it is visible from here. If you were to go outside and watch the sky, you would probably see half a dozen meteors per hour, plus maybe 1 meteor per hour that was from the Boutids meteor shower. And if you lucked out, you would see a burst of meteor activity where you might see, 1 every minute or 1 or 2 every minute for some period of time. Very, very unpredictable. And so we tend not to promote a lot of these things simply because they're such long shots. I mean, technically on any night, the Earth could go through a dust bunny that gives you a little mini meteor shower. I was out one time where we saw, I think, 7 meteors in about 15 seconds, all parallel. It must have been an object that had broken into pieces, and each piece sort of came in a row. It was really cool, but completely unpredictable. And we just happened to be in the right place at the right time. So Stellarium does a great job of actually telling you what these meteors are, meteor showers are. For example, the June Boutids are over near the Big Dipper is where they radiate from. Here's our Big Dipper right here. Here's where the meteors would come from. So you might see one going this way, and you might see one going that way, and then you might see one going that way. But as you can see in the data here, maybe not, the ZHR, the zenithal hourly rate, the rate of meteors is variable between 0 and 100 per hour. Not very helpful, is it? I wouldn't suggest going out to watch specifically for the June Boutids. However, if you happen to be out, or if you've got one of those cool cameras that you can just sort of program and walk away from and let it take pictures constantly, you never know what you might get. There's also a really neat website. I think it's called livemeteors.com, and it doesn't use visual means. It uses radio signals to detect meteors when they go over. When they shoot through the sky, the trail there can actually bounce radio waves off of it. Anyway, that's another thing, another way to look at that. But yeah, the June Boutids, I'm not going to stay up for it myself. Let me see. We had another. And Chris in. Okay, so this week's show is the last one for the summer break. So if you want to see the Sunday Night Astronomy show, you can check it out this Sunday. And of course, all of their shows are archived on their YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch a bunch of them. All right, let us go back to some other cool space stuff. A lot of the cool space stuff this month was not really that cool. iSpace had a little lander that was going to land on the moon, and it was really. I thought it was going to work. I thought, yeah, this is going to do it, and it didn't. Unfortunately, there was a problem with one of the measuring things. And so it was still going 200 kilometers an hour when it was only 50 meters above the surface. It just wasn't slowing down fast enough. And so they expect it crashed into the surface. They didn't get anything after the point where it was supposed to have landed. So unfortunately, that hasn't worked. A lot of these private companies that have been trying to land on the moon, there have been a couple of successes, but a lot of failures. And I think it's partly because rather than working, when you're working in a sort of a proprietary environment where you're doing things your way and you don't want to share your information with anybody, you're not benefiting from that sort of groupthink that happens. And they're basically learning all the same lessons that NASA learned in the 50s and 60s about how to do space travel. And it's kind of disappointing because you would think that, landing on the moon, we've done that as a species so many times, so many ways. It shouldn't be that hard. It should be easy enough for a company to be able to do something like this. I mean, if I could rent space on a moon lander to have like a camera or a science experiment or something like that, that'd be amazing. Like, I can't wait for those days. But the companies seem to still be having this teething trouble. So hopefully this will continue to get better, and we'll get a chance to get a little bit more of the space travel working properly. This just seems to have been a bad month for things not working. Okay, let me see here. I wanted to move back to Stellarium for one more thing before we wrap up here. Our show's a little bit light this month because, as I mentioned, I've got 2 shows opening on Saturday, and after this show, I'm going back under the dome to finish them. So I put in my calendar, do not open 2 shows again at the same time. Anyway, it'll be fine. If you go out and you wait till it gets dark, you explore the... there we go. You explore sort of the eastern sky, we're already starting to see fall constellations come up. This is just the nature of the way the seasons work. Whenever you're in a season, you can see those stars. The summer stars are high up in the south, but as soon as you wait till after midnight and into the morning sky, we're already seeing the constellations of fall. So we've got Pisces rising up here. Saturn's over near Pisces. This is Aquarius over here. This is Capricorn. These are all constellations made up of fairly faint stars. There's not a lot of bright stars in this particular area along the sort of the southern horizon. So once we've got the summer triangle and the Milky Way, and that starts to move towards the west, there's sort of this gap of stuff all along the horizon here. And we really don't get to anything bright until we get up to these stars in this area. This is Pegasus, the Great Square of Pegasus, which looks like kind of like a baseball diamond. This is home plate, first base, second base, third base. There's the pitcher's mound in there. There's a little star. Here's the bat catcher. Here's the manager coming out to yell at the umpire or something. I don't see how that's supposed to be a winged horse, but whatever. And then right next to it, connected to it, is Andromeda, which is kind of this line of stars here. And there's actually a second line that kind of parallels it here. The reason I point all this out is that in Andromeda, in this area right here, sort of right up above, if you start in Pegasus and you go 1, 2 stars to the left and then 1, 2 stars up, you see a tiny little fuzzy patch. It looks like a little piece of Milky Way that has disconnected from the Milky Way. There we go. I zoomed in a little bit there. This is the only thing in the sky that is not part of our Milky Way galaxy because it's another galaxy. This is the Andromeda galaxy. It is 2.5 million light years away. Everything else you can see, all the stars, all the planets, the sun, the moon, everything here on the Earth, all of the objects, the star clusters and nebula and things like that, they're all part of our Milky Way galaxy. That's the only thing that isn't. And so it is the farthest thing that you can see with the unaided eye, 2.5 million light years away. And we can already start to glimpse it if you get up really, really early in the morning. It's best in the fall, and we'll talk more about it in the fall when we can get a good view of it. But it's amazing how quickly the seasons change, how quickly the stars change, reminding us of those seasonal changes, reminding us of the changes of the calendar. I just had a kid graduate high school, so I've been thinking a lot about how time flies. I hope your summer doesn't fly too much. I hope you get a chance to get away from the city lights, get out under the stars, try and pick your camping dates around the time of new moon if you can. Yeah, it's nice to see the moon, but you can see that from the city. If you go away from city lights, you want to go out when there's no moon so that you get those really black, dark skies. It's a magical experience. When I was talking to Wilfred Buck at the premiere, he was talking a little bit about, he's a science communicator. He's talking about how you inspire kids to connect with their culture, to connect with the sky and things like that. And he said, if you get them under a real dark sky, there's an emotional connection that happens. There's a wow factor that happens, no matter how jaded or whatever the person might be. They could be, just looking at their phone and whatever. But if you can get the phone off and you get them under the dark sky and they see those stars, a connection is made. So try and make that connection this summer. Try and get out under the stars if you can. And we always like to hear your stories about observing. We always like to hear the kinds of things that you're doing. So you can always send us your stories, your images, or anything like that through Facebook or on YouTube. My email is space@manitobamuseum.ca, and I'd love to hear from you. So please tell us what you'd like to see in the show coming up. See what other kinds of things you'd like to hear from us, and I'd love to know what you're doing for the summer for observing. Thanks everybody for joining us. It's been nice to get together, and I hope you get a chance to spend some time under the stars. Have a great month, and we'll see you the last Thursday of July for the next episode of Dome at Home. Good night.